If I had to give you just one line, it's my role is about finding the diamond in the haystack. And that's actually when I left my corporate job, quit it. I had no clue what to do. There were many tears for many months because I'd never done something like this before. I had never kind of gone on sabbatical. Like it was just unheard of for me. And when I say Design Up was indeed a pivotal moment, is because the ones I've come across are Innovation Sensor. That was actually one of my titles in the past, which nobody really understood so much, but would always kind of smile at me and say, okay, I kind of understand what you're doing, but not really. Then, of course, there's Stargazer, Fortune Teller. So many very, very creative titles that I've seen on LinkedIn. That's when the dissonance hit because we were making these strategies or building these products or services for humans, or for you, but we didn't really understand what they wanted.
Old Sea with JD is a podcast on alternative careers, sponsored by IIAD, the Indian Institute of Art and Design.
Thank you for tuning into All See with JD. I'm your host, Jay Datta. In this episode, we delve deep into the world of user insights, consumer insights, and business design. Now, this world can be a little confusing because of the variety of titles that's there. It can be a little daunting because this is also a new field which has developed over the past decade and a half. But fear not, today we have with us someone who has made this career a central part of her focus, the world of insights. She is the head of insights for Spotify, India and Africa and the Middle East. She was previously with Swiggy leading the charge for Swiggy Labs. And she is someone who has been an engineer and dabbled into the world of design also a little bit. Interestingly, she credits the conference Design Up for helping her find this insight into a possible next career. Please join me in welcoming Vidisha Hegde to All See with JD. Welcome, Vidisha. It's lovely having you here.
Thank you so much, Jay, for having me. It's an honor, and like you said, it's a full circle coming back and chatting with you again after Design Up.
Yeah, I remember you had graduated from ISB. You were working in a startup,
absolutely.
and then
Great
you wanted
memory.
to sort of right. We do remember, like you were in the very first Design Up in 2016.
Yes.
That's right. So I do recall a lot of people from that time onwards. A lot of people have kept coming back to Design Up over the many years for sure. But lovely having you. So here's the first question for you, Vidisha, is that Head of Insight sounds interesting, but not very insightful.
Ironically.
Right, exactly. So what do you do? Could you just explain in a few lines?
I mean, if I had to give you just one line, it's my role is about finding the diamond in the haystack. Now, what I mean by that is my mandate is a wide one. It covers data science and analytics, consumer research across quantitative, qualitative research, and UX research as well, and business intelligence, which is more about just scanning the market. So, market trends, competitor intelligence, cultural trends that are happening out there as well. But these are all still disciplines. What do you really kind of do with that? So, coming back to what I said about diamond in the haystack, my job is to go through all of the information that I can get from looking at the user in various angles and bringing it together in a synthesized, crisp manner, which can then go to our business teams, product teams, marketing teams, content teams, and help them really prioritize and focus their decision making. So, driving data driven decisions, and when I say data, I don't just mean analytics, but I mean consumer understanding as well, is what really makes up my role as an insights professional at Spotify. And while my mandate includes this, like I said, the stakeholders that I work with are multiple because we tend to go problem statement backwards.
Right.
It's where you have multiple insights approaches to even being able to tackle a problem statement.
Sure.
And that's where we do mixed research methods a lot.
Right.
And we follow this practice globally across Spotify. My role at Spotify is one of the first of its kind in terms of being a regional market insights lead.
Sure.
Otherwise, you always have insights professionals mapped to a certain problem statement or product area. So
Right.
that's how it is.
Great. On that note, what's the difference between user insights versus market insights?
When I say user insights, like I said, it all kind of, it's like a Venn diagram where you have overlaps between everything.
Sure.
User insights could mean just looking at data on platform data and saying, okay, this is how user consumption is trending, and that could be a
Yeah.
user insight.
Sure.
Or I've spoken to 15 people and there are some patterns that are emerging from there, and
Yeah.
that could be a user insight. Or it could be a quantitative research survey. But anything outside of that, in terms of just the context, or how at least we define it at Spotify, is understanding the market in terms of competition.
Yeah.
So just having a view on competition, having a slightly more zoomed out view of cultural trends that are out there as well, is something that kind of defines the market insights part for us. So that's how we differentiate. Of course, we have to always look at it in tandem,
Yeah.
but that's what we do at least from a Spotify perspective. That's how we define market insights.
Great. That's fantastic. Very briefly, for a lot of people who might not know, what do companies do with this kind of insights? How do they use it?
An essential part of working on insights is deciding on what the problem statement and hypothesis that you really want to validate or invalidate are.
Sure.
And I think insights really is extremely powerful when we are looking at it from that lens.
Yeah.
And my mandate is to make sure that all the synthesis I'm doing of culture, consumer, and context is to try and answer those problem statements,
Sure.
answer those hypotheses in some sense, and then lead to the content team saying, okay, this is the user audience we need to go after, and these are the principles with which we have to design our strategy.
Right.
So coming to what I need to give to them, I need to not just give them a very deep understanding of what the user wants, how they consume content, how they engage with Spotify, but also certain principles for them to be able to design their content strategy for the next 6 months.
Brilliant. And I think culture, as we keep talking about, is forever changing, and that changes the way people consume things, what they like, what music bubbles up, what
Absolutely.
doesn't. I think this is again deeper into it. So coming back into this whole area of focus, there's a bunch of terms used like user research, user insights, business design. For the purpose of this conversation, what's the term that we should stick to? Insights or?
So
Any
insights,
thoughts?
I guess, would be of course, the broad umbrella term.
Yeah.
User research would be the discipline within it, of course, and of course, user research again can be broken into so many parts, right? You have
Exactly.
qualitative, you have quantitative, you have
Yeah.
UX as well, and even at Spotify, you have, at least in that context, insights teams do have user researchers,
Right.
but they also have data science professionals.
Yeah.
So over there as well, insights is still the umbrella term. Now, business design is perhaps, at least according to me, is more of a synthesis approach,
Right.
where you're looking at all these user data points, which might come from data analytics or might come from any form of user research,
Yeah.
and then you're using design thinking principles or human-centered design principles
Sure.
to really synthesize these insights into something that has a lot more business context as well, in the way you need
Yeah.
to execute it.
Right.
So I think why it is called design is because that's where the business understanding comes in
Yeah.
terms of what is viable for the business, what is feasible for the business,
Right.
and what, of course, is attractive or desirable for the consumer. So
Sure. So, Vidisha, along the same lines, alternative careers have a penchant for creative titles. I mean, some of the ones which I have heard is, of course, a business anthropologist. What are the sort of creative offbeat titles that you would have come across?
I mean, business anthropology makes sense because it's associated with a very relevant field of study. The ones I've come across are innovation sensor. That was actually one of my titles in the past, which nobody really understood so much, but
Right.
would always kind of smile at me and say, okay, I kind of understand what you're doing, but not really. Then, of course, there was stargazer, fortune teller. So
Oh,
many
wow.
very, very creative titles
Right.
that I've seen on LinkedIn across
Okay.
the field. But at the essence of it, it's still uh, consumer understanding
Yeah.
that the people are kind of really going after. But yeah, a lot of creativity in
So
these
no
names.
no rock star researcher and soothsayer yet.
Fortune teller,
Fortune teller is
kind
close
of,
by.
yeah,
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 exactly.
kind of in that in that ballpark. Yeah, so
Astrologer.
yeah,
This yeah.
stargazer also was.
Stargazer is also that kind of a thing.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So
True.
innovation sensor, like I said, was the one that I had. But I mean, again, nobody could really understand it
Didn't make
fully.
much sense overall. Right.
You got it.
So, Vidisha, you've had quite a journey, which is you started in engineering, you wanted to get into design, and you've done courses in design, and you've been kind of flirted with design a lot back and forth, and then insights. Take us through your journey, especially with regards to your inflection points, and how did you
Sure.
decide on one versus the other?
Absolutely. Um, so I think while I had followed a traditional career path in some sense of doing engineering without any peer pressure, this was completely my decision. I always had a creative streak in me, which I manifested. I was very interested in art and design, and that manifested in me actually doing a diploma in animation alongside my engineering. So I always dabbled with slightly more creative fields whenever I could. Um, Even career wise, while I actually got into an engineering heavy career where I worked in the renewable energy field for many years.
Right.
And that's what brought me to Bangalore. And when in Bangalore, you jump on the startup bandwagon.
And you're originally from Mumbai.
I'm originally from Bombay. So I
Yeah.
actually grew up in Bombay, studied there, worked in a consulting firm for a few years, and then got onto the slightly more technical side of the energy space. But like I said, when I moved to Bangalore and I got bitten by the startup bug, I joined a B2C company over here. And while we were making these strategies. I was in the CEO's office at this healthcare company, and while we were building these strategies and looking at our numbers, and my background was very quant heavy
Right.
and strategy heavy from a numbers perspective. I That's when the dissonance hit because we were making these strategies or building these products or services for humans or for
Yeah.
but we didn't really understand what they wanted. A lot of our information was just coming from data, historical data, or just from competition. And I think that's when I again discovered the world of user research, and design thinking was exploding as a term at that
Yeah.
time. That's when IDEO was kind of, I think, entering India. There was a flurry of design research firms that were coming up. The term was kind of, everybody was talking about it, doing workshops on it, and that caught my interest because there was a slightly more creative element also to the synthesis
Sure.
of research over there. And that's actually when I left my corporate job, uh, quit it. I had no clue what to do. There were many tears for many months because I'd never done something like this before. I had never kind of gone on sabbatical. Like, it was just unheard of for me.
Yeah.
And when I say Design Up was indeed a pivotal moment, is because a month after I quit and I was still lost about what to do next, I broadly knew that, okay, we're not doing a good enough job of understanding our users. I want to do something creative. I want to understand design. There is this nice new field called design thinking erupting, was when Design Up was announced and happened at Numa at that
Yeah.
time. And I just remember going there so hopeful, saying that, okay, maybe I will come out of this conference meeting a few people who can help me understand the space more, give me more clarity. And it actually did, because there were folks who spoke about product design, they spoke about user insights, they spoke about, a few of them spoke about design thinking as well. There were people I met there who I could just bounce off ideas and brainstorm with a little bit. And that's what led me to my next phase of the career, where I said, okay, I want to understand product design better and user-centered design better.
Right.
So let me get into that. And that's when I started doing a lot more academic kind of studying.
Okay.
Signed up for courses. I did a product management course where I learned about user research and product design and how to kind of build out products. I read up the Acumen. I signed up for the Acumen IDEO course. I read a ton of books. I think I had like at least 10 books on design research on my bookshelf at that moment. But then I realized that it could only get me so far. Without the practical aspect, and because you need to talk to users, you need to synthesize, you need to brainstorm with other people, you have so many stakeholders with whom you have to talk about this.
Yep.
There's only so far academic learning could take me, and I needed to be able to really practice this in a more experiential way. And that's when I started looking out for these firms which had kind of erupted in that space.
Yep.
And I found a firm that had been around for a while. And their name was Quicksand. And Quicksand was an interesting place for me because it was there were the founders were a mix of business folks and of people from more creative backgrounds. So I felt like I might not be a complete misfit over there.
Right.
And I got a fellowship program for a year where I worked with them for a year and just understood the art and craft of research and understood how much detail and technicalities research can actually go into. So I think
so from design thinking to design doing is what's happening now.
yes, absolutely,
Right.
absolutely, yeah. So so and for the creative streak in me, I realized that that's where the whole storytelling part comes in as well. Because when you're doing research, and I again whenever we used to do research, it was always the outputs were not that inspiring, but in that in Quicksand is where I understood that you could use photos, you can use videos. There's so much innovation in even the way you present your insights and the impact those insights could actually make. So I think it kind of also just let my creative streak also manifest a little bit. Now, while I did do the fellowship with Quicksand, post that I actually went on leave for a year on maternity. I had my first child back then. And again, I was back to the space where I said, oh God, okay, I've left my job. I've done this kind of learning exercise in design research. Now what? Who's going to hire me? I'm not sure what kind of job I'm going to get. Is there anything out there for me? Because I was not sure whether I wanted to get into a traditional consumer insights role. But then Swiggy Labs came up. And Swiggy Labs was a great place where we were actually thinking about design research. Swiggy Labs was a place where we were actually thinking about what to build for users who don't know what they need at that moment, right? So you're kind of looking into the future, you're doing exploratory research, and that's where design research actually kind of just fit in very seamlessly.
Right.
It being a very analytics-focused company as well, I could actually also use my quant side, my quant strengths, and bring them into this role.
Sure.
So that was my first maybe interaction with saying, okay, I can use mixed research methods and use that to not just identify a new problem statement that Swiggy needs to go after, but also build that out and say, okay, this is what the product needs to look like until you reach product market fit. We didn't have research budgets. There was zero research budgets at Swiggy. Everything was kind of jugaad research. You go figure it out. You have 1 month to figure it out. But your upside, your downside is super high because if things go wrong, then you fail. So,
true.
And of course, failure was the name of the game at Labs, but minimizing risk was also something that was my mandate as the head of research and insights. And I guess that's one thing that we did really, really well at Swiggy. We went very deep into understanding the user, minimizing biases in research as well, and going after users with products that would really delight them.
Right.
The move from Swiggy to Spotify was very seamless, just because Spotify uses mixed research methods of inciting. Globally, it's bread and butter for them. So there was no lobbying that you need to really do to say, okay, hey, a lot of folks don't understand insights that much or
Sure.
understand the value of research. But here
Yeah.
it was a lot easier to do that. Of course, you still need to do it a little bit, but not as much. So I think I'm in a good place now in terms of I still want to. There's still so much for me to kind of learn around insights. It's still a very technical field from a user
Yeah.
research perspective and from a data science perspective. There's so many things that are changing here: softwares, tools, methodologies, approaches. So there's a
Right.
lot left for me to learn, but I think I'm in a good place for me to kind of just go further into that space.
Fantastic. That's been quite a bit of a journey, kind
Yeah.
of. And so,
Cool.
on that note, Vidisha, what would be a typical week in your life? If there is a typical week, that is.
Yeah, I think it always depends on the problem statement that we're going after, because a few of them are very number heavy and you're kind of spending days on looking at data and just trying to analyze it and looking at spreadsheets from and looking at the numbers from various ways. There are other weeks when you're just going from user interview to another user interview to another user interview and just speaking to multiple users as well,
Yeah.
and just kind of trying to go deeper into that space. Then, of course, there are weeks when you're just trying to make sense of everything. You just want
Sure.
to sit back, relax, meditate, and just say, okay, I know this now, and what does this all really mean for Spotify in that sense? So I think that's a very important part of being an insights professional, just
Yeah.
being able to sit down and zoom out and connect the dots across what you know.
Right.
And I think just another part of my week is learning, just saying that, okay, there is so much left for me to learn in this field across not just the technical fields of data science and analytics and user research, but also information design,
Right.
data visualization. These are all subfields that all make are very important for the
Sure.
insights professional, because you're not just talking to users, you're also synthesizing those insights for very senior stakeholders who
Yeah.
really need to kind of be able to process that and understand what you're trying to tell them, and then say, okay, these are business decisions we are going to take basis your insights. So
Yeah.
that's where the information design and data visualization part comes in as well.
So some research teams can be super large, Vidisha. Like I think Spotify has a fairly large team.
Yeah,
Is that right?
800. We have 800 insights professionals across the globe. So
Wow,
it's
that's a
massive.
big number. That's probably
Yeah.
larger than design teams or project management, other teams, pretty much, right?
Yeah, it does dwarf, even in the Spotify ecosystem, it does dwarf a lot of the other design teams, especially. But I guess the rationale behind that is that the focus of Spotify, and of course many other companies as well, is always going to be the user, and
Of course,
trying
yeah.
to understand whatever you can from every single angle, or as many angles as you can, is something that companies need to double down on
Right.
and need to be able to invest those resources in.
Sure.
So while at Spotify as well, the insights team probably does have skews
Yeah.
depending on the problem statement or the
Right.
product area, where you might skew more on user research. Sometimes you might skew more on quantitative user research, sometimes more on data science and analytics. So it kind of varies basis the problem statement or the product area. But the focus on the user is something that is at the heart of all of this.
Right.
And I think that takes time, and that takes a lot of time to just be able to understand them, to be able to cover various segments of users. Because I think going after your users in a simplistic manner of saying, okay, I've spoken to 5 people and that's enough. Of course, it is enough if you are specific enough about what that user segment you're going after
Yeah.
means. But otherwise, to be able to cover a breadth of users, you do need time, and you need large teams to be able to do that
Sure,
as
yeah.
well. And I'm actually very happy to see insights teams growing, because it's
Yeah.
actually giving the user its due recognition and worth and focus when you
Right.
have an insights professional being able to tell product leads and business leads what the user needs, who is the user all about, and build a much deeper understanding for everyone across the board. So I'm
No,
quite
it's
happy about this trend that's been
absolutely.
happening.
I see another trend which is been over the last decade or maybe a decade plus,
Yeah.
which is the shrinking marketing teams and the growing insights team. And I think this is, I mean, of course, not great for the marketing teams. But especially in product companies, there's that emphasis on if you know the user, then you might not need to spend so much time and money and effort marketing it to them versus building something around them, something for them. Is this something that you have been seeing? You've been almost there in a decade plus,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, optimizing for risk and increasing accuracy of your marketing strategy is
Yeah,
something that Insights is extremely efficient in being able to do. And I
right.
think that is something that we've seen again in my Spotify experience as well, where we are very careful about uh, the campaigns we're building
Sure.
or the and how the campaigns are built. Who are we going after that campaign? What is the media targeting going to be like?
Yeah,
Right, because marketing revenues and budgets are in and millions of dollars,
yeah,
and every kind of penny saved is makes a huge difference for us.
totally. Yeah.
So I think optimization of marketing strategy, or like I said, any other kind of strategy, is what Insights is greatly helping with, and again is finally being looked at in a much better way. Typically, you always had Insights coming in with brand management or the
Yeah,
campaigns where you'd get
sure.
the research team and they'd tell you about what the campaign should be about. But
Right.
it rarely ever came in with targeting of those campaigns and uh, in terms of who you should be looking at and how you should be
Right.
addressing them. So now I think it's a lot more holistic,
Right.
the way Insights and marketing are kind of playing together. So yeah, I can understand why that's happening and why there is
Yeah,
greater accuracy coming in with marketing in general.
sure.
Yeah.
On that note, who are the people in this team? I mean, where do they come from? Are they from sociology, anthropology, data sciences? Could you give me a sense of
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. I mean, I think in at least in the Indian context, what I've observed in other companies, Quicksand, Swiggy, etc., a lot of them did come from sociology, political science, sometimes psychology,
Right.
but various associated fields of user understanding or user behavior. In the data science, sorry, in the Spotify ecosystem, it's across the board. You
Okay.
have data science folks who are doing user research. You have business folks who are doing user research. You have um, a lot of behavioral economics professionals, so folks who've done economics majors, who've done
Right.
psychology, who've done sociology. So there is no one education stream that's really gotten you into the Insights team,
Sure.
because there is so much learning on the job that you need to do, and there's so much
Right.
external learning and resources that are available to you, that as long as you've shown your depth of knowledge and your capability in being able to just uh, have a grasp on this
Yeah.
field, your educational background really doesn't matter that much. So I think that's the trend again I'm seeing
Yeah.
with at least companies hiring for Insights folks.
We talked about this profession, this area flourishing now, but do you see that in a decade from now, this trend would continue? It might be a completely different avatar, but would that flourishing continue for the insights professionals?
Absolutely. I mean, even from my own user journey, where I said how in 2016 I was nervous, I didn't know whether I'm going to get a job, I'm going to be unemployed, uh, there's only very traditional ways of doing market
Yeah.
research and user research, to the way I have seen it balloon till this point. I think that trend is only going to increase because companies are getting more and more aware about the focus they need to put on users, the cost
Yeah.
savings that are coming in with that laser focus on users, the way we spoke about it, marketing
Yeah.
strategy. You're seeing that with other forms of planning at all these companies as well. So I do believe there is going to be a greater focus, a greater opportunity in the insights field, no matter
Yeah.
which subfield of insights you're on. I mean, even if you just look at LinkedIn,
Yep.
there are so many insights jobs coming up every week at very well established companies, and not just well established companies, even at smaller startups.
Right.
There are consulting opportunities that are coming up. So I don't think that's going to be a challenge at all. I think it's going to exist, it's going to be there. I think the nature of the game is going to change, though, from having isolated disciplines of insights. For example, just user research, just data science. I think we're going to see more and more mixed research inciting coming up. Like I said, Spotify is one of the few companies globally that really do it in a very, very structured manner. But I think we're going to see more of that, and that's how it's going to change a little bit. But it's going to be there.
Great. That's very optimistic. And on that note, Videsha, what are some of your cherished memories of working in this field over the last maybe a decade?
I think, I mean, it's a small one, but it was a very impactful one for me. I think number one was when I went on my first ethnographic kind of visit and spoke to users when I was with Quicksand, and we were working with the Melinda Gates Foundation, and we had to talk about sanitation, and went out and actually spoke to a user. And I remember that being pivotal for me because I always had this notion that anyone can do research. What's there? You can just, it's a bunch of questions, you can just talk to them, you'll figure something out. And that's a notion that still exists with many, many people, right? But that's when I realized that there needs to be a rationale, there needs to be a technique, there is a science behind even speaking to users, the concept of leading questions, the concept of just structuring how important a research guide is. And I think that was seminal for me to say, okay, this is a lot more hardcore than I imagined it to be, and I need to go deeper into this field to really be better at it. So I think that was number one. The second one was at Swiggy, where again this was me coming from a traditional corporate strategy role to doing this fellowship in Quicksand, where a lot of folks were just rolling their eyes and saying, okay, I don't know what you're doing with your career. And then moving to Swiggy and giving my first user research synthesis presentation to the leads of Swiggy Labs, and they clapped. And this was something that, I just remember them being absolutely wowed by saying, oh my God, like now we know what needs to be done in terms of a new business that we can go after, an exciting business opportunity that we can go after, and we know who the user is, what they want, and how to go after them. And a lot of that was self-learned. That wasn't something that I'd kind of seen any examples of. Nothing like that exists in a Swiggy ecosystem or anything else. But this was all me just picking and choosing from my experience and putting it all together. And I think that was another moment which really stays with me until now, because it's from then on is where I kind of went further on into this path.
Right. Now, that must be quite amazing, kind of coming from a very different background and finally kind of being acknowledged as someone who's making a difference, who can make a difference to the strategy. Now, obviously, to do something wonderful, you've also got to do a lot of grunge work, a lot of hard work, a lot of stuff that you don't like. What are those in your line of work?
I think lobbying for insights and research is the biggest one. Of course, you have the nitty-gritties of just going through discussion guides, making sure that there is no research bias in the smaller parts of research execution, sitting on multiple user interviews every week. So you do have that exists as part of commissioning research. Of course, just going through reams of Excel sheets and data and dashboards. I think that's kind of part of the grunt work. Of course, everybody just looks at the insight, right? You see the deck at the end of it, but you don't really realize the sweat and tears that have gone to just going deeper and zooming out into that consumer data. But coming back to my first point about lobbying for insights and just breaking stereotypes that exist about research and insights. I actually really believe that insights is a change management exercise with a lot of folks. You need to be able to understand why people don't take research and insights seriously, and then try and address that. And that's a primary part of my job as well. Where I need to. I've seen folks kind of back away and say, okay, but I don't think this is useful, or Why
Right.
would this be useful? Or why do I need to spend time and money on this? Let me just run with what I know, run with my
Yeah.
gut and my
Sure.
intuition. But showing them that data driven evidence can help your gut make better decisions is something that's actually part of maybe my weekly work as well. And it's a softer part of it,
Sure. Yeah.
but it does exist.
Yeah.
So
Vidisha, you've had quite a journey. What do your parents think about it? Because you're a very compliant child. They didn't have to force you into engineering. You went into engineering on your own and you've traversed this very alternate career path. What's been their reaction to it?
So I think when I was in censor, I don't think they ever told anybody what I did because they
Right.
never understood what to say
Yeah.
when somebody asked them what Vidisha does. I think they still don't understand what I fully
Right.
do,
Okay.
but they were happy to see me grab just the field of research by its horns in some sense.
Okay.
And while they were initially very hesitant, especially when I quit a lucrative startup, I was doing seemingly well over there. It was in the impact space, healthcare space. All seemed very rosy, and I go off and to this very kind of slightly lesser known firm. Uh, they, I think they trusted me to
Right.
just do what was right for me, and I guess they were okay with me failing as well. So
Yeah.
but they were fairly hands off. I think it's
Right.
important to and that's what I realized how important it is to have someone just watch over you, have your back, but not really kind of give you very stringent guidance about what
Right.
needs to be done and what doesn't need to be done.
Recommendations versus prescriptions or
Absolutely,
kind
yeah,
of being
and
meddling into
my father's a doctor, so prescriptions come very easily to him.
Okay.
But what also helped was, sorry, I'm going to go
Yeah, of course,
tangentially.
please. Yeah.
I think what also helped was trying to find a midfield between where I came from and what I was doing next.
Right.
At least for me, I wasn't taking something. It wasn't a very drastic step.
Yeah.
I actually did a side project in telemedicine after leaving Portia, where I said, okay,
Okay.
I want to try and combine
Right.
that experience with exploratory research and product design, and let me
Right.
kind of do that. So before I did Quicksand, I actually did a side project as well, because that also gave me the confidence to just
Yeah.
work on my own skills. That's when, okay, my parents also saw that I was doing something maybe that's when my parents also saw that I
Yeah.
was actually doing something tangible as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
But I think the trust factor was always there, and
Right.
and of course I was in the old patriarchal sense of saying it, I was somebody else's responsibility now. I was married by
Right.
then, so.
Okay.
But having said that, my
Yeah.
husband was also equally supportive. So I
Right.
think,
I
yeah.
think the typical thing which happens, and again, as a researcher, you'll relate to it, is that we are wary about fields where the data is incomplete, where we
Yeah.
don't have an understanding. And partly that's the reason for this podcast, is to understand those fields, because you probably understand what a bank manager's role looks
Yeah.
like, because you've been to a bank and you've seen
Yeah.
them rushing around and running
Yeah.
around and meeting clients and
Yeah.
signing off things and all of that. But the moment I say research on music or anthropology or
Yeah.
sociology and other things,
Yeah.
it's very hard for people to understand, what will I do with these skill sets, or how do I actually use these to make money,
Yeah.
or will the world pay me for it?
Yeah.
That's the harder part. So
Yeah.
that's a very human thing, nothing to do with just your parents or my parents. Again, my parents
Yeah.
were super hands off, so this was
Yeah.
super helpful, because
Yeah.
no one really cared kind
Yeah.
of like that much. So
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, where I would kind of like to assure parents out there and
yeah,
anybody is that research is still based on very tangible fields of study. For
Yeah.
example, psychology or sociology or behavioral economics or any other kind of related fields are going to all help you understand a user. And like I said, understanding a user is probably the most important thing that a company today can do.
right.
And things are changing. Perceptions of research are changing. The monetary aspect of how lucrative a research job is changing as well.
Right.
Research is very expensive. Outsourcing research right now is extremely expensive for me. So I do feel like there are agencies out there and consulting firms out there that are doing very, very well, that
Right.
are getting multiple projects commissioned by them. Even if you work, you have, I mean, many kind of ways to be a researcher, right? You either join the industry, you do freelance, you join a consulting firm. And I think all of these are on a gradual upward path from
Sure.
a monetary perspective as well, from what
Yep.
I've seen. For example, when I tried to actually even hire a user researcher last year,
Right.
Spotify couldn't. We couldn't afford some of those salaries
Okay.
because that's how much they were being paid in the market and that's how well they were doing. So
Wow, that's very reassuring
yeah,
overall.
absolutely, yeah.
And so when you hire people, what are the kind of the top three maybe qualities that they're looking for? I mean, whether it's a senior, junior role, what would they be?
I think number one would definitely be storytelling and narrative related skills.
Okay.
Because I think telling the story of research and insights well is probably the most important part of any researcher and is maybe a gap in today's times as well.
Sure.
While a lot of folks focus on the execution part of things, but telling that story well
Right.
is restricted to maybe senior folks and not really a skill set that you're building as you go into the field.
Sure.
And that I think can be a competitive advantage. So that's number one. Number two is language skills. I know this seems a little different, but being able to articulate what insight is kind of telling you, and even being able to design research
Sure.
is where language comes in. And while it might not seem like a major enough skill set, there is not much you can do if somebody's grasp over language is not strong enough
Right.
in terms of upskilling. So I feel like that is something that I do look for. I need
Right.
somebody who has a very strong grasp on their language and is able to articulate that language very well in
Sure.
research design and execution as well. I think the third is, of course, you need to be an extremely agile learner and you need to be able to go in depth into
Right.
those fields of learning
Yep.
because research is highly technical. You have multiple subfields. And when I say research and insights, I mean, again, I mean data science, analytics, user research, quantitative UX research, qualitative user research. So many softwares and tools kind of coming up every single week in this.
Sure.
So you need to be able to know how to leverage those tools,
Right.
and of course, just go deep into using those tools with
Right.
for consumer understanding. Yeah.
So on that note, Vidisha, how is AI disrupting?
Oh no!
That's a mandatory
I knew
question for this alert.
I knew this was going to come up.
That's like
Table stakes.
table stakes these days,
Yeah.
kind of. Yeah, totally.
So I'm actually excited about the AI tools and softwares out there, which will maybe facilitate research and inciting in a more efficient manner. It's already kind of coming up. I already have multiple companies reaching out to me who say that, okay, we can do quantitative exercise for you at scale along with qualitative inputs, which we can then analyze using AI and those kind of softwares are useful for me for sure because Spotify is a very lean team. So especially if you have lean teams and you want to save on bandwidth and effort, I think AI right now in its current capacity is very, very useful. But I'll also be wary about using AI for synthesis in a very deep way because I think
Right.
that's where the power of an insights professional really comes in.
Right.
That's where your creative thinking comes in. That's where your ability to really connect the dots comes in. And it's fun. It's so much fun. So why would you want to outsource that
Right,
as well?
yeah.
So I think it's a little bit of a choice.
Yeah.
In terms of efficiency, of course, I think AI is great. But I would maybe cherry pick where I want to use it
Sure.
right now. I don't see it as widely used yet in the Indian context. I still do believe it would be better used as a support kind of software than really disrupting research and making kind of taking jobs away.
Right.
Because I think being able to talk to a user and picking up on body language or picking up on just softer parts of a user in their um, life context is
Yeah.
something only a human can do.
True. And you also mentioned language, and language being so intrinsic, and there are certain turns of phrases which doesn't make sense as a translation. But it only makes sense if you know the language, if you know the cultural context
Absolutely.
of those things,
Absolutely.
which is even hard for humans to understand and therefore codify AI
Absolutely.
accordingly. So
Yeah. No, absolutely, 100%. I mean, we see that even in a Spotify ecosystem where,
Right.
and that's why I'm here as a regional market
Yeah.
insights lead, because I need to tell the rest of the world what India truly means, or what India is really, really about, or what the Middle East is really about.
Sure.
Because otherwise, it's very hard to understand that from just a deck
Yeah.
or from just a secondary research report.
Society has a whole bunch of different definitions of success. What is success? What's your personal view about success? What does success mean to you?
I think achieving mastery for me
Right.
is success. And when I mean that, I mean that's what's actually been a guiding light for me in this insights process as well. And that's what I've stuck on for so long. To be honest, my first maybe aim would have been I'm just going to understand research for a few years and then get back to a regular strategy and operations role or a product role. But there's so much more to learn, and I still feel like I don't know enough. I'm not good
Right.
enough at creating surveys or analyzing surveys or understanding users. And there's just so much more to do that for me to achieve that, when I feel like I've achieved a certain degree of mastery, there is when I feel I would be successful. And that can be maybe applied to other goals,
Yeah.
career goals that I can have in the
Sure.
future as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, a piece of advice to the 19-year-old Vidisha. What would you tell her if you had to meet her again?
Stay off the sugar.
Okay.
But yeah, no, jokes apart, I think I would tell her that it's okay to be a jack of all trades.
Right.
This kind of actually links back to a really great book I read called Range,
Okay.
which just talks about the generalist.
Sure.
And I remember me stressing at that point because I had done engineering and I didn't really have specific deep skill sets
Yeah.
that I had picked up. But I think it's okay to expose yourself to a variety of fields and then figure out what are those one or two things that you really want to go deeper into and
Sure.
maybe achieve mastery on
Yeah.
as well. But I think the youth, when you're young, is when you want to just go wide.
Totally. That's completely sort of understandable, and people want to experiment. Increasingly in the last few decades, I think this has gone up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks a ton, Vidisha. It's been lovely having you.
Thank you so
over
much
here.
for having me, Jay.
No, I think it's been super insightful with your focus on the world of insights. So thank you. And thank you for watching. And keep watching for more episodes of AltC with JD, with real people, real stories of alternate careers, paths. We will be back soon. And don't forget to subscribe and to follow us. Till then, stay curious, stay hungry. See you. Bye.